Welcome to Cause Before Symptom with your guest host, Josh, also known as the Official Urban. You can follow Urban on Twitter for free resources, ebooks, and notes. Myself and Pastor Carner appreciate each and every one of you who have decided to join us tonight for our live show. Let's get into it.
All right, guys, this weekend I'm going to be gone. And again, Urban is going to take over for you. It's Labor Day, and I'm going to do what I normally do. Go to a concert and camp for 3 days. That's what's going to happen. So tomorrow, Urban is going to give you some real important information about some exchanges between some Khazarians. And I want you to listen to this interview. Whether it's real or not, it is very critical that you understand that if this is real and this is how they feel about us, then we're in deep, deep doo-doo. So love you guys. I will see you after Labor Day. Bye-bye.
Guys, welcome back to Cause Before Symptom. My name is Urban. How are you doing tonight? I would urge you guys to check out the episode from last night. We did an episode talking about the Rabbi Finkelstein interview, which makes some pretty shocking claims. Tonight, we're going to cross-examine it with an older interview from 1976. This is, let me get this correct, because I butcher this sometimes. The Harold Wallace Rosenthal interview from 1976. This is something that was mentioned when we covered last night the article by Dr. Henry McCow. He claims that this article is a much older, much more credible article. So what we're going to do is we're going to cross-examine the other interview with this article, and we're going to see how much of it lines up with this article. This article is titled The Hidden Tyranny, Part 1. So I'm going to skim through it. I will try to paraphrase some of the longer parts. It goes into dialogue between the two of these people, and part of it really goes down to a question and answer type thing. So let's get into it. So it starts off briefing on what's going on. It says, this booklet contains a text of a most revealing and shocking interview of a Jew by the name of Harold Rosenthal, which was conducted in 1976 by a concerned patriot, a Walter White Jr. It's a great name. Mr. Rosenthal, an influential Jew, learned in the Jewish ways, and involved in the workings of government in Washington, D.C., explained the Jewish involvement and the cause of major problems we face today. Rosenthal, in exposing certain topics of the inner invisible world of Jewry, revealed the modes and tactics Jews have used in destroying Christian civilization and covertly attaining control over our lives and government. The result has been a hidden tyranny upon us, like the tyranny waged against the saints by the red beast system of revelation referred to as Mystery Babylon. But how could such a small number of Jews enslave so many people and gain such an overwhelming control of their governments, especially without their being aware of it? The answer to this may be found in Christ's parable of the unjust steward, which represents Jewry. They are able to prevail in the world despite their ungodly ways because of their cunning and shrewd ways. As Christ said, quote, "For the children of this world are in their generation wiser than the children of light." Luke 16:8. In other words, the Jew with his worldly mindset is wiser than God's Christian people. When you read the words of Mr. Rosenthal, the reality of this statement will come to light. This problem was so prevalent and important for us to overcome that Christ had instructed us to, quote, "be wise as serpents." Matthew 10:16. That one's a pretty good one. America and the world is now covered in political, economic, moral, and social problems which need to be acted upon by the Christian people. As Edmund Burke stated, quote, "the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing," unquote. But before we can properly act, we need a proper, not just superficial understanding of the problem. This booklet will help provide the reader with that understanding. In a highly confidential interview with a Jewish administrative assistant to one of this nation's ranking senators, he said, quote, "It is a marvel that the American people do not rise up and drive every Jew out of this country," unquote. The Jew Mr. Harold Wallace Rosenthal made this statement after admitting Jewish dominance in all significant national programs. He said, quote, "We Jews continue to be amazed with the ease by which Christian Americans have fallen into our hands. While the naive Americans wait for Khrushchev to bury them, we have taught them to submit to our every demand. Asked how a nation could be captured without their knowing it, Mr. Rosenthal attributed this victory to absolute control of the media. He boasted of Jewish control of all news. Any newspaper which received to acquiesce to controlled news was brought to its knees by withdrawing advertising. Failing in this, the Jews stopped the supply of newsprint and ink. Quote, it's a very simple matter," unquote, he said. Asked about men in high political office, Mr. Rosenthal said that no one in the last 3 decades has achieved any political power without Jewish approval. Quote, "Americans have not had a presidential choice since 1932. Roosevelt was our man. Every president since Roosevelt has been our man," unquote. In a discussion about George Wallace, Mr. Rosenthal smiled and suggested that we note where Wallace stands today. Got him good there. Let's see. Let me skip down a little bit. The interview continued on in almost omniscient plain. Quote, "We Jews have put issue upon issue to the American people. Then we promote both sides of the issue as confusion reigns." And that's what they're doing to this day. With their eyes fixed on the issues, they fail to see who's behind every scene. We Jews toy with the American public as cat toys with a mouse. As the conversation went into the late hours, one could sense that perhaps America deserves the reign of terror being planned for her. The Jewish mind pits every ethnic group against the other. Quote, "The blood of the masses will flow as soon as we wait for our day of world victory," unquote, Mr. Rosenthal said coldly. What does all this say to us? Since what you have just read, plus the lengthy interview that followed, Mr. Harold Rosenthal, age 29, the administrative assistant to Senator Jacob K. Javits of New York, was killed in an alleged skyjacking attempt on an Israeli airliner in Istanbul, Turkey, August 12, 1976. That's interesting. Guys, I've only skimmed through this, so I haven't read this in detail, so I'm hearing this almost for the first time as you have. That's very interesting. He ends up dead. I'd love to see if anyone could find record of that. It would appear that Mr. Rosenthal might have talked too freely because although 4 people were killed and some 30 injured during the skyjacking attempt, Rosenthal was not killed by a random bullet as were the others. From reports secured at that time, it seems amazing and strange that of all the people involved in this incident, Mr. Rosenthal should have been fatally wounded. I guess he did survive then. Meanwhile, I, Walter White, who conducted this confidential interview, can now state after much investigation, expense, and travel that Harold Rosenthal was undoubtedly murdered at the Istanbul airport. Well, that was a twist upon twist, wasn't it? And what was to appear as a hijacking, probably by his own people. We had no desire to hurt anybody, and especially members of the Rosenthal family who had suffered enough in this tragedy. We correspond with his mother and father in Philadelphia and his brother Mark David Rosenthal, who is attending college in Northern California. In fact, it was he who advised me that Harold's friends in Washington had set up the memorial fund in Harold W. Rosenthal name. He sent us a copy of the Harold Rosenthal Fellowship in International Relations, American Jewish Committee, Washington Chapter, 818 18th Street, Northwest Washington, D.C. It was an address. It lists some of the who's by who and the honorary co-chairman and vice president Walter F. Mondale and Senator Jacob K. Javits. Out of respect, we decided to wait until a year had passed since the death of Harold Wallace Rosenthal, so we delayed publishing everything he gave us on the memorable day and evening. And as stated before, the interview was lengthy as he seemed to enjoy pouring out this information, and at times it was broken and went into the evening. This writer and editor is not easily shocked, but as egotist Harold W. Rosenthal raved on and on, I found much of what he said actually horrifying, the actual betrayal of which he admittedly was a part of, and he had appeared to gloat over the apparent success of a Jewish world conspiracy. This, mind you, comes from an administrative assistant to one of our ranking senators, Jacob K. Jarvis of New York. What you're about to read should act as a warning to all non-Jewish people throughout the world. It hopefully should open the eyes of many who knew him in Washington government circles. It becomes indeed obvious that what he discloses is not fiction. It is not imagination. He was not pretending as he spoke with knowledge and intelligence. Many things have been said and written about the one world Jewish conspiracy, but never has it been described so openly. It staggers the imagination. Their plans are shocking, and many will be astonished at the contents of this document. Nothing like it has ever been told before. We prefer not to elaborate. You be the judge. Looking back to the time of this interview and having had time to analyze Harold Rosenthal's candidness, we are compelled to think of him as a conceited, boastful, yet very knowledgeable person. I would classify him as an egotist and egoist. At times his cruelty surfaced with a venom, especially as he describes the stupid Christians, or quote goys, as he likes to often refer to us, in quotes. So this is an interesting turn of events. It really is. This is an interesting article. I read it from the very beginning, probably about the first 4 to 5 paragraphs, and I decided that I would leave this to read to you guys tonight. This is 42 pages, so there's no way we're going to get through all of it. But I've posted the link in the last 2 videos. You guys should definitely take a look at it for yourself, and then you be the judge, like he said. Again, there is something behind everything. There is a reason that all of this exists. Either misdirection, to mislead, to manipulate. It all serves a purpose, but you got to decipher that purpose, and you got to weigh both sides. You got to weigh both outcomes. So let's get into some of the interview. Let's see. This surprised me because the word goy is not in our language, and he must have known this. His mind was thoroughly immersed in the one world plan of world Jewry. With arrogance, he boasted that the Jews' conquest of the world was almost complete, thanks to Christian stupidity. When asked if he was a Zionist, Mr. Rosenthal replied, "That's a hell of a question. At the foundation of the issue, the traditional Zionist concept of aliyah, a Hebrew term meaning ingathering, or return of diaspora, dispersed Jews, the Jews to Palestine, the Palestine homeland. Ever since 1948, the creation of the State of Israel, aliyah has become a basic imperative of Israeli government policy." What is aliyah? Will you please spell it out for me? He did so, and we acquired as to the realistic meaning of aliyah. Mr. Rosenthal said, "It is a, quote, is it a permanent physical migration to Palestine, not just a visit," unquote. We asked, what is Zionism? Zionism. I've heard Jews define it as anything permanent, from permanent migration to financial, spiritual support of Israel from around the world. Mr. Rosenthal replied, "Our first leader, former Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion, said that Zionism without a return to Zion is phony. Not many American Jews migrate permanently to Israel. Some will say that all Jews, by definition, are Zionists. Others say that a Jew is not a Zionist unless he's a member who pays dues to an active Zionist association. Definitions have been tossed everywhere since the Jewish homeland became a reality. Millions of tax-exempt American dollars are sent to Israel every year, and we true Americans do not like this," Mr. Rosenthal replied. Quote, "The native politicians in Washington are gullible. Most of them are not too bright. So the powerful Jewish lobbyists influenced this practice years ago, and there is no one strong enough to stop it. Some of the money is returned to the United States and spent on Zionist propaganda efforts, much of it through the B'nai B'rith and the Conference of Jewish Organizations and the World Jewish Congress. The Jewish Agency is a funding arm, a sort of body of B'nai B'rith officials. There is nothing wrong with sending American dollars to Israel's tax-free, so long as you're smart enough to get away with it. That's a hell of a way to look at it. Let's reverse this conversation for a minute. You made it clear and quite vociferously that you don't like Jews. Why do you hate us? Unquote. Mr. Rosenthal, I do not hate anybody. I said I hate what the Jews are doing to us, and especially as it relates to any and everything related to Christianity. I hate their deceit, trickery, cunning, and their detestable dishonesty. Does that make me anti-Semitic? If it does, then I am anti-Semitic. Rosenthal replying, he says, anti-Semitism does not signify opposition to Semitism. There is no such thing. It is an expression we Jews use effectively as a smear word used to brand as a bigot. Like you guys, anyone who brings criticism against the Jews, we use it against hate mongers. It was made clear that I despise the Jews' corruptive influence on our Christian culture and on our properly Christ-oriented American way of life, to which Mr. Rosenthal said, during Christ's time, the Jews were seeking a material and earthly kingdom, but Christ offered the Jews a spiritual kingdom. This they couldn't buy, and so they rejected Jesus Christ and had him crucified. What do you mean had him crucified? Doesn't history prove that the Jews crucified Jesus Christ? To which he answered, yes, I guess they did. I don't beat around that bush, but 2,000 years ago, your people would have done the same thing to a man who mistreated them as Christ did the Jews. You speak of Jesus Christ as merely a man. Rosenthal replying, he says, that's all he was, a man who walked on earth like any other man, and this myth about Christ rising from the dead and returning to earth to visit with his disciples is a bunch of crap. The Jews who drove the Arabs out of Palestine did so to disprove Christ's mission for a spiritual kingdom. You see, instead of a leader who would make an empire for the Jews, your kind people gave the Jews a peaceful preacher called Christ, who instead of eye for an eye turns another cheek. Rubbish. We are building, in fact, and have built an earthly empire without your kind and disappointing Messiah. Unquote. I see that it is you and your kind who try to get Christ out of Christmas. I feel sorry for you, to which he quickly replied, don't give me that shit. I don't want your pity. I don't need it. Too many Jews do not have the guts to tell you how we live and plan. But I am not intimidated by anyone or anything. I know where I'm going. Unquote. We asked why the Jews frequently change their names. He says, Jews are the most intelligent people in the world, so it benefits them to change their names. They do so. That's all there is to it. They mix in your society, which is plenty corrupt, so while the Jews are benefiting themselves, the dumb goy doesn't realize that these Jews with the non-Jews are Jews. The non-Jew names are Jews. I know what you are thinking about Jews in government who use non-Jew names. Well, don't be concerned, because in the foreseeable future there will be no presidential power in the United States. The invisible government is taking strength in that direction. So we're just 7 pages in at this point, and already, I mean, what I'm seeing, yeah, I mean, you can't lump all Jews in with this group. So, you know, I think it's a false dichotomy to just say it is this group of people or that group of people. That's not really valid, and it never will be. That's why I'm titling this series Destruction by Dialectic. What it is the polarization of a topic, a dialectic, ruins the whole argument. You know, education is problematic right now. Okay, well, it's not as simple as because of this being right and this being wrong. No, it's a fine-grained issue. It needs a lot of different things to be looked into. It's never that simple. And by polarizing the debate stage, by taking a black and white approach to it, you're really killing the whole argument. So I intend to talk more about that. But for now, what we're seeing is pretty accurate. I mean, all you got to do is look at the world right now. The things that they're saying. I mean, yeah, it's pretty factual, pretty objective. It's pretty hard to say that it's not true at this point, especially when you add in the prophetic element to it. You know, how did these people know this stuff years and years ago, 1976? So he's continuing the interview. He says, to your knowledge, are the Jews in Russia really persecuted, or are they given any kind of freedom? To which he just said, most Jews throughout the world, I'd say more than 90%, know what is really going on, what is really happening to our people. We have communication unequaled anywhere. It is only the jerks, the ignorant, and the misinformed and degenerates who can find peace in your society, and you bastards hide your sins by donning sheep's clothing. You are the hypocrites, not the Jews, as you say and write about. To answer your question, in Russia, there are two distinct governments, one visible and the other invisible. The visible is made up of different nationalities, whereas the invisible is composed of all Jews. The powerful Soviet secret police takes its orders from the invisible government. There are about 6 to 7 million communists in Soviet Russia. 50% are Jews and 50% are Gentiles. But the Gentiles are not trusted. The communist Jews are united and trust each other, while the others spy on one another. About every 5 to 6 years, the secret Jewish board calls for the purge of the party, and many are liquidated. When asked why, he said because they began to understand too much about the Jewish secret government. Russian communists have a secret group order which consists of Jews only. They rule over everything pertaining to the visible government. It was this powerful organization that was responsible for the secret removal of the center of communism to Tel Aviv, where all instructions now originate. Does our government and the United Nations have knowledge of this? He replied, the United Nations is nothing but a trapdoor to the Red World's immense concentration camp. We pretty much control the UN. When asked why the communists destroy the middle class or educated and their entire families when they invade a country, Mr. Rosenthal replied, it is an established rule to destroy all members of a pre-existing government, their families and relatives, but never Jews. They destroy all members of the police, state police, army officers, and their families, but never Jews. You see, we know when a government begins to search for communists within its borders, they are really attempting to uncover the Jews in their area. We're not fooled. The invisible rulers in the communist countries have a world control over the propaganda in the governments of free countries. We control every media of expression, including newspapers, magazines, radio, and television, even your music. We censor the songs released for publication long before they reach the publishers. Before long, we will have complete control over your thinking. The way you boast, that was the end of his quote. And then the interviewer replies, the way you boast, if this is true, it is frightening to think about our future and that of Christianity. To which Mr. Rosenthal replied, quote, there will be a forced class warfare here in the United States, and many will be liquidated. You will unquestionably be among them. The Jews will not be harmed. I'm not boasting, I'm giving you the facts. And it is too late for your Christian followers to put up a defense. That time is long past. Long, long, long ago, we had to become the aggressors. That is undoubtedly one of our great purposes in life. We are aggressors because you stole your pretended religious beliefs from our Talmud. That's an interesting way of looking at it. This is a perspective that I haven't quite heard before. So this is definitely an interesting interview. I found this through the Dr. Henry Macow interview. Dr. Henry Macow is minorly known in the podcast circuit. I know that he's associated a little bit with Fritz Springmeier. I trust Fritz Springmeier, so I would be willing to at least read this article and consider it for myself. I mean, he wasn't wrong about forced class warfare. I mean, that's pretty much what we have seen in the past 8 to 10 years. The breakdown of the class society. Um, the middle class has gone away. It's really just the poor against the rich again. And anytime that happens in history, you tend to have a war come sooner or later. After reminding him, we thought he was intelligent, but now realize that he doesn't know what he was talking about. He replied, quote, Judaism is the unequaled culture, with nothing anywhere in this world to compare with it. Your so-called Christianity is an outgrowth of Judaism. The cultural and intellectual influence of Judaism is felt throughout the entire world, yes, throughout civilization, unquote. When I asked whether he thought we faced a problem eventually with the blacks because of their startling population increase, he said that the blacks are helping to serve our purpose, which might mean several things. We discussed the black invasion of city, country, and state, and their prominence now in television, and how ridiculous it is for blacks to become converted to Jews, like Sammy Davis did, for instance. Mr. R replied, that doesn't mean anything. We know that a black cannot become a Jew and that Sammy Davis is still black. It may have been to his advantage to become converted. In reality, he still remains censored word and not a Jew. I'm, I, uh, I'm just the one reading this to you. We're all mature enough to take the little bit of truth and do away with that which doesn't sound right. Um, we all reserve that right. So you guys really just gonna have to make up your mind yourselves. And we think you guys are a advanced audience. I think that you guys, the people who watch this show, uh, made it here um, because you like the type of information that we have on this channel. And if you do, I think that means that you're capable thinkers to think about this article and take the truth and leave the rest. We discussed the tragedy of Watergate and corruption at all levels of government and suggested that government representatives practice more openness and candor in dealing with people, Mr. R said. What good would it do? What the hell does the public know about running the government? The great majority are asses, horses' asses. May we quote you on that? I don't care what you do. As I said, few have the guts to speak out. We would all have better understanding between each other, Jews and Gentiles, if we spoke out more and openly. Your people don't have guts. We establish your thinking. We even have a place where within you a guilt complex, making you afraid to criticize Jewry openly. Um, I mean, listen. Here's the deal on that. The deal is there really is a pushback to ever saying fair criticism against Israel or the Jewish people. That's the truth. You know, okay, if I'm on the street and I'm fighting with somebody and I say it just out of spite, that is offensive, whatever. Okay, but if I'm sitting here saying here's some facts, here are some statistics, and we really need to take a close look at this and ask ourselves some questions, and then you respond back, obviously turning the situation into something about identity or racism or this or that, you're putting the ball into your court. So that's a language tactic. And it's the use of these language tactics, these tricks, these magic spells, um, that make me think that something's really going on. If nothing was going on and you had nothing to hide, get mad at me because it's offensive, whatever. You can tell if somebody's really triggered or if somebody's playing a game with you. And a lot of them are playing games. I mean, look at what's going on over in Gaza right now. Uh, it's ridiculous. I mean, we've got people being slaughtered. And I honestly, I'm starting to doubt that these hostages are legitimate. I'm just going to come out and say it. I think some of them may have been legitimate. Some of them may have not been legitimate. But I think Israel holds all the cards here. And I think that they are not going to end this thing until they have gotten rid of the Palestinian people. I think that this is a to the death type thing. They hate them. They don't like them. They want them gone. They want to get rid of the problem. And they're not going to end this thing until they're diseased, dead, gone. You know, they can make up hostages until the cows come home. You know, if they get 100 hostages, well, they've just discovered 100 more that they took. You know, it's an easy game to play. And unfortunately, I won't say Jewish people because it's not Jewish people, it's the state of Israel that does these tricks, and we know that they've done these tricks, so that's not too hard to believe. The Jewish belief in religion. In the quietness of this enlightening conversation, it became clear that the understanding poured forth did not come from a novice. Mr. Rosenthal was asked how Jews gain acceptance so easily among the other races. His answer was long and thorough. At a very early date, urged on by the desire to make our way in the world, Jews began to look for a means whereby we might distract all attention from the racial aspect. What could be more effective and off because I hadn't anything playing through it. What could be more effective and at the same time more above suspicion than to borrow and utilize the idea of a religious community? We've been forced to borrow this idea from the Aryans. We Jews never possessed any religious institution which developed out of our own consciousness, for we lack any kinds of idealism. This means that a belief in life beyond this terrestrial existence is foreign to us. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what they need. It's all about that canal. It's all about business. I'm just going to quote it. I mean, I think we're all mature for that. We can make some shekels, like he said in the interview. I have nothing against Jewish people. I know a lot of people don't. They just have fair criticism. Honestly, I miss the days where you could make jokes and not die for it. You know, I had a couple friends. I don't know if they're watching. You know who you are. That were burned at the stake on Twitter, just for something random. And it's crazy that we live in such a time where you say the wrong thing, your life might be ruined in a matter of seconds. Not saying their lives are ruined, but just too much trouble for such a little thing. This means that a belief in life beyond this terrestrial existence is foreign to us. As a matter of fact, the Talmud does not lay down principles with which to prepare the individual for a life to come, but furnishes only rules for a sumptuous life in this world. It is a collection of instructions for maintaining the Jewish race and regulating intercourses between us and the Goy. Our teachings are not concerned with moral problems, but rather with how to get, quote, get. This explains the parasitic nature. Interesting word there, parasitic nature of the Jewish people. Jews never get rich off one another, but seek to get the labor and wealth of others. Isn't that interesting? Parasitic nature. In regard to the moral value of the Jewish religious teaching, there exist quite exhaustive studies which show the kind of religion that we have in light that makes it look uncanny to the Aryan mind. We are the best example of the kind of product which religious training evolves. Our life of this world only and our mentality is as foreign as the true spirits of Christianity, as our character was to the founder of this new creed 2,000 years ago. The founder of Christianity made no secret of his estimation of the Jews and the fact that he was not one of us. When he found it necessary, he drove us out of the temple of God, because then, as always, we use religion as a means of advancing our commercial interest. The merchants of Babylon have commercialized our society. That they have. It's only gotten worse. Imagine what it was like in 1976, what it is like today. World of difference. You know, there's a lot to talk about here, but one thing that I think needs to be discussed is that we have been brainwashed into just giving our secrets away. You know, Facebook, Twitter, social media, the influence of it will be possibly one of the downfalls of humanity if it comes. The erosion that social media adds to society is great. But, you know, they could come and they could steal your data from you. Or you could pay them money to give it away for free. You could make them money, advertising dollars. You know, it's just a scam. It's all a scam. They're making money off of you. You're not getting any cut of it. And they're learning everything about you, exploiting your mind. It's ridiculous. It truly is Orwellian in the worst of ways. The Jews have established 5 major falsehoods which work to conceal their nature and protect their status and power, to wit: 1. The Jews are Israelites and thus God's chosen people. Well, I'll be candid tonight. I don't believe that there is a such thing as chosen people. I don't. I don't think any group is above the other. I think that you have the human family, and that's it. You know, you have every human, that's it. Simple. It's not that hard to get there with me. So yeah, number 1, debunked. 2, Jesus Christ was a Jew. Hey, you know, maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. I don't care if he was a Jew. I mean, he did his thing. His teachings were good. Everyone that's ever, you know, grown from the idea of Jesus, you know, real or not, that's it. You could debate about whether he was a Jew, whether he wasn't. But I would urge people probably just to focus on the teachings and not worry about such a menial debate. 3, that 6 million Jews were killed in a Holocaust during World War II. That's a big one. I've got a book on it. It's a short essay. It's only about 50 pages. Did 6 million really die in the Holocaust? You know, obviously the Holocaust happened, but I do believe that there is good evidence that maybe the numbers were inflated a bit. You know, and that's just based on the book and the report that's laid out and the evidence that's included. There is definitely a angle for that being profitable, that being needed, that being exploitable. I mean, whatever somebody can dream up, somebody's done it. So, you know, if you think that that there are not people out there who are evil enough to make something like that up, you're mistaken. That is the great trick, is that this stuff is so messed up that nobody would ever even believe it, even if it were true. 4, that all races are equal, or that all are brothers. That doesn't make any sense if it says, number 1, the Jews are Israelites and thus God's chosen people. How does it say that all races are equal and that all are brothers? And then it says, and number 5, that the Jews are just another religious group. Some say they're race, some say they're religion. Little of each. That's a good debate. Are they a race? Are they a religion? Are they both? We are obliged to conceal our own particular character and mode of life so that we will be allowed to continue our existence as a parasite among the nations. Our success in this line has gone so far that many believe that the Jews among them are genuine Frenchmen or Englishmen or Italians or Germans who just happen to belong to a religious denomination which is different from that prevailing in these countries, especially in circles concerned with government, where the officials have only a minimum of historical sense, and we are able to impose our infamous deception with comparative ease. Therefore, there is never the slightest suspicion that we Jews form a distinct nation and are not merely the adherents of a confession, though one glance at the press, which we control, ought to furnish sufficient evidence to the contrary, even for those who possess only the smallest degree of intelligence. Now that's interesting. So I wish I could even begin on that subject. But here's the truth. The truth is that Occult Theocracy, which is a well-known book that details the full history of the mystery religions, all the way from ancient Babylon, ancient Egypt, all the way back, cited many times. It makes quite clear that the Hebrew people were henotheistic, which means they chose one God out of multiple. There are something like 46 different groups of Jewish denominations. There have never, ever, ever been a such thing as the Jewish people altogether. Um, that's never been true. So that's why it's pitiful um, to see all these televangelists, people who get up on TV and open the Bible and pick out a verse and spin it and make money off of it. And surprisingly, all of them are Zionists. Israel's the chosen people. Give money to Israel, support Israel, kill the Palestinians. Screw the Palestinians. They don't need a homeland. We deserve it. That's the equivalent of me as saying, I deserve a house. Okay, let me go steal my neighbor's house, kill his family, and say that I'm chosen. Okay, that's not how it works. Now, come on. Why are we believing this shit? The money power. When questioned about the ways in which the Jews have gained power, Mr. Rosenthal said, our power has been created through the manipulation of the national monetary system. We authored the quotation, money is power, as revealed in our master plan. It was essential for us to establish a private national bank. The Federal Reserve System fitted our plan nicely since it is owned by us, but the name implies that it is a government institution. From the very outset, our purpose was to confiscate all gold and silver, replacing them with worthless, non-redeemable paper notes. This we have done. God, there are so many rabbit holes in this article. Um, we lost our purpose. I haven't even really compared it to the other interview, except with my little bit of humor. Um, there's a lot of truth in here. Um, it's the bad apple spoils the bunch, is what it is. Um, it's a strategy to invalidate an argument. Um, I guess the best way to explain it would be, and this might be polarization time, but stick with me. The flat earth movement. I don't believe the earth is flat. If you do, that's your beliefs. I'm not here to argue it. But let's take a hypothesis. If I go to somebody and I start talking about, hey, there have been a lot of whistleblowers, there have been international hearings, inquiry hearings, testimony that say that some very powerful people are involved in pedophilia. Okay, and then if I follow that up by talking about how the Earth is flat, they're going to throw out both of those things that I just said, even if one of them is true and the other one is just so crazy that nobody will ever believe it. So, hypothetically, not really hypothetical because, yeah, I mean, if you go around telling people the Earth is flat, you're going to get a lot of reactions. Truly, I mean, at this point, guys, I really don't care if it's flat or not. That's the way I see it. I am probably never going to see it for myself. I am probably never going to reach the outer atmosphere of Earth in my lifetime, so I just don't care, honestly. Let's see, let me go to the next section. Mind control and conditioning. When asked if the Jews felt any threat from the silent majority, he laughed at this idea, saying, quote, "There is no such thing as the silent majority because we control their cry and hue. The only thing that exists is an unthinking majority, and an unthinking they will remain as long as their escape from our rigorous service is the opiate of our entertainment industry." So he's saying that Hollywood, the entertainment industry, exploits people escaping from their jobs, essentially. By controlling industry, we have become the taskmasters and the people the slaves. When the pressure of daily toil builds to an explosive degree, we have provided the safety valve of momentary pleasure. The television and movie industries furnish the necessary temporary distraction. These programs are carefully designed to appeal to the sensuous emotions, never to logical thinking. Because of this, people are programmed to respond according to our dictates, not according to reason. Silent they are, thinking they will remain. Yeah. Very interesting interview here. Um, very along the lines of the interview we listened to yesterday. And these are objective statements in the way that I think of it. These are objective. I mean, let's just throw out the argument that it's the Jews. Let's not say that anymore. Let's just say whoever the hell it is, they. Yeah, this is what's gone on. Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what's happened. That's exactly what's going on. See, I'm going to read a little bit more. We're going to take a little intermission so I can rest my voice, take a drink, and then we'll see where we lead and what more comes to mind in this interview, because it's 42 pages long. There's two parts to it. And I would highly suggest that you guys read this. There's a lot here, and it's very, very interesting. Let's see. The control over religion. As the hours rolled on in this intense but cordial interview, Mr. Rosenthal expressed his thoughts concerning religion. Religion, too, must be taught, and through this necessity, as we have labored. As the Jew Karl Marx stated, religion is the opiate of the people. With our control of the textbook industry and the news media, we have been able to hold ourselves up as the authorities on religion. Many of our rabbis now hold professorships in supposed Christian theological seminaries. We are amazed by the Christian stupidity in receiving our teachings and propagating them as their own. Says in quotes, this is the interviewer's commentary. It says this is one of the main reasons for the power and the control the Jews have attained over white nations, the adopting of Jewish ways. As Henry Ford stated, the Christian cannot read his Bible except through his Jewish spectacles, and therefore reads it wrong. Guys, we're here reading this. To anyone on the outside, anyone else, you read this article, your channel is screwed. But I think you guys are mature enough for it, and I don't care. I really don't care. I know what's in my heart. I'm not here to offend anybody, but this is damning stuff here. You have a lot of people throughout history. Henry Ford is one of them. He made comments on the protocols of Zion. I know that he wrote a little bit about it. It's hard to find that copy. I mean, a lot of these people genuinely dislike what they labeled Jewish people. Now, I think, again, it's the dichotomy. It's that I just would feel guilty saying it's this people. See. Yeah, it beats me, man. It beats me. I have no clue. Maybe I should turn the chat on. That's my bad. So people can see it. There we go. Check out our links. I've set us up a bunch of different channels on Facebook. We've got YouTube now. I'm trying to get the word out on this show. I think it's got great content. The stuff we cover here is fun. I have a good time listening to James' perspectives. I think he's always got a good message for you guys. I think that his intentions are good. I think that he's only trying to teach people to the best of his ability what's going on in the world, and I share his desires. I just want people to wake up and see what's right in front of them. And if I can get the information out there for people to hear it who need to hear it, then I'm fine doing that. I'm not going to let people control my life and say what I can and can't say. I don't believe in that. So Judaism is not the only teaching of the synagogue, but also the doctrine of every Christian church in America. Through our propaganda, the church has become the most avid supporter. This has given us a special place in society. They're believing the lie that we are the chosen people and that they, Gentiles, these deluded children of the church, defend us to the point of destroying their own culture. Jews need not have their finger on every button that causes a destruction or a Judaization of Christian civilization, as in many cases they have their proselytes or Gentile fronts to do it for them. This truth is evident even to the dullard when one views history and sees that all wars have been white fighting white in order that we maintain our control. We controlled England during the Revolutionary War, the North during the Civil War, and England and America during World War I and II. Through our influence of religion, we were able to involve the ignorant white Christians in war against themselves, which always impoverished both sides, while we reaped a financial and political harvest. Anytime truth comes forth which exposes us, we simply rally our forces. The ignorant Christians, they attack the crusaders even if they are members of their own families. Anyone who has been in the forefront of exposing the truth of the Jewish issue can attest to this fact stated by Mr. Rosenthal. Well, that's funny because I said just before I read that I was dedicated to exposing the truth. And Sure as hell. That does ring true. That's how I know this guy's words are legit. Anyone who's ever said anything true publicly has probably been shamed for it one way or the other. But guys, we're gonna get a commercial break in for you. I've been going for an hour straight, so I'm probably gonna lose my voice. But I don't care. Stick with me, guys. We'll be back. See.
If you're looking for a publication that delivers honest takes and critical insights into the issues of our day, then look no further than the Flame Paper. The Flame Paper is written for the people, by the people, who aren't afraid to challenge a mainstream narrative, be it healthcare, voter fraud, political correctness, or even the one world government. The Flame is full of timely articles, reports, and expert advice written by freedom-loving, truth-telling experts, journalists, and concerned citizens. To subscribe, go to theflameusa.com.
In the 1920s, Rockefeller changed medicine from plant-based to crude oil synthetics. 95% of all pharmaceuticals on the world's market are unnatural and not made for our bodies. A group of elite bloodlines were sharing their daily vitamins and minerals secretly, until now. This is their formula according to the whistleblower. May he rest in peace. Anna Datko and Nicole Orozco, owners of the Flame USA newspaper, partnered with entrepreneur James Carner to create a supplement company that brings the world back to organic plant-based medicine. After years of publishing whistleblower documentation on their Truth newspaper, the team paired up and started their own supplement company and are teaching people about the dangers of modern medicine. Because we are not excreting toxins, it is truly changing our DNA. Check out Elite Potion, what billionaires take now at elitepotion.com. Now, back to Cause Before Symptom with your guest host, Urban.
I appreciate you guys sticking with me. We're back. I think I'm going to spend the last probably 15 minutes here skimming through this just to see what all is in here, to try and do a little bit of a broad peek. And then I'll read a little bit of the conclusion just to kind of even it out a little bit. Let's see. The beginning of the second part, it lists kind of some bullet points. Mr. Rosenthal, an influential Jew in his own right, prided himself in being a vital part of the admitted control of the media and of their invisible government, in which no political power is exercised without Jewish approval. Let us also highlight the other key remarks of Mr. Rosenthal, thus far, I guess. That the American people have no guts and the Jews sneer at their stupidity, 1. 2, the Jews' power through their money and their money power afford them a master plan for international conquest through propaganda. The next one, there is in America an unthinking majority. The Jews' treachery of pitting labor against management. The Jewish belief that Christ was just another man on earth. The Jews are admitted parasites who have gained control of our society, governments and economies through their religion. Oh, I guess that was all together. It's kind of formatted weird. The myth of the Jews being the chosen people. The confessed big lie that the Jews are a religion and not a nation. And that the Jews fear being discovered for what they are. Um, again, I think the guy, the guy being interviewed, Rosenthal. I think if this guy was part of something like this, I think he would probably be kind of including himself with this, what he views to be majority. Um, but I just, I don't feel comfortable using the label. I don't think I can say it's just this group of people. Um, I mean, a lot of them might call themselves Jews, but they're not really Jews. They're Khazarians. If you haven't learned about the Khazarians, you need to go back, and there's a two-part series on YouTube somewhere. It's probably been buried, but it's um, like 3 hours long. It's called the Khazarian Mafia. I would uh, advise you guys check that out. I think also on our Facebook page, if you guys go and check it out, I posted an interview. It was Benjamin Friedman, where he talks about the Khazarians. It's basically this idea of people who say they're Jewish, but they're not really Jewish. They're far from it. At least, what good there is in it. It really, the article affirms that there is a Jewish world conspiracy. Um, I mean, pair this with the protocols of Zion. Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty damning. But um, I think it's a tough subject. It really is. This manuscript can act as a weapon with which we will open the eyes of the masses. They know something is wrong, but they do not know what to do. Now we can show them. Only by knowing the truth of the problems can a proper course of action be made. Thus, the importance of circulating this evidence to tens of thousands is necessary so a victory could be within our grasp. Although it is a lengthy manuscript, its contents will hold the attention of almost any reader. Why? Because it affects every man, woman, and child in America. Yes, even throughout the world. It is that important. There cannot ever be another document of such vital importance. Um, I mean, let's be real. I mean, this document um, is written in such a way that you can almost sense the energy behind it. This sense of urgency. For instance, the capitalization of the letters. Um, it really does read to me as somebody who's serious, and I view it with such an objectivity that I really see the prophetic truth behind it. You know, weighing it with hindsight, which is always 2020. If you look back at something from 1976, you compare and contrast it with the future, 50 years almost. It's crazy. You know, uh, that is what confirms that every single one of us who dares to think outside the box is not wrong. Um, because you go back to all of these different people who tried to warn us, and many have tried. Every single one of them registers as prophetic. Every single one of them. Orwell, Huxley, all of these people tried to warn us. And if you do a little bit of digging, you'll find that these people had connections. So, I would wager that these people heard things, knew things, and felt compelled, or some maybe even put up to the job of warning us, for their karmic debt idea. But nonetheless, when they put the truth out in front of us, we have to call their bluff because they are banking on us not caring. They plan to blame you and I on Judgment Day. They're going to say, we laid it out for them. We tried to tell them, put it right in front of their faces, waved it under their nose, and they didn't listen to us. That's what they're going to tell God. They're going to blame you. They're going to say it's your fault. They think that it's going to work. But they might be mistaken. He says the Jewish nation is the enemy of all nations. They have already become hysterical since this document was brought to their attention. Maybe that is what the earlier interview from the first episode was a bad apple spoils the bunch bomb to blow this up. If this is real, okay, let's take this document, let's mix in some crazy stuff about, cannibalism in the food supply, McDonald's, human hamburgers. Guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not fully out on that. I mean, I think these people are that crazy that they may do something like that. And I mean, what are you going to do with all these bodies? I'm just saying, 50-50. People find teeth in their food all the time. Where does that come from? It's, you're not going to McDonald's, sitting there working, and a tooth falls out, and it doesn't happen. So where are these teeth coming from? Where's all this crap in the food that people are finding coming from? Something's not adding up. But let's say that that's not real. It sounds so crazy that people won't even believe it, and they'll throw the whole argument out. None of it's true now. So, but I see it, and I hope you guys do too. I see their sickness behind it. This idea that maybe I can just get away with something if it's so crazy that nobody would ever believe it. I see their methodology. It's messed up, but I see it. And the way that I wager is that I'm smart, but somebody else has probably thought of it before I have. So if I've thought of it, somebody else is doing it. A warning. This is where I'm going to end it, guys. I'll leave it on a warning. This is how the first part of the document ends. This is part 1. So we didn't even get into part 2. You can only imagine what's in part 2. I'm going to leave a bunch of links in the description. I'll leave a link to this document. It's probably already there. I will link to a few other articles that I wrote, in which I, at the very bottom, leave a bunch of PDFs, books where you can read and figure this stuff out for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Don't take James' word for it. Go figure it out yourself. Yeah, I mean, it's sick. These people are sick. Yeah. A warning. There's risk involved in printing this manuscript. And this was buried, guys. I had to do some digging. I had to look on Yandex, which I've mentioned before. It's such a shame that, Russian search engines, oddly enough, are less censored. than American ones. And if that doesn't register as a warning, you better wake up. This writer was struck down on March 13th, 1978 and badly beaten. I guess he's speaking of himself. But I risked my life before and I shall gladly do it again, if only to get this knowledge into the hands of a few million people. The reward that comes to those who stand by the truth, regardless of the cost, is akin to whatever our Lord must have experienced when he resisted the devil. After the devil went away, the scripture says, angels came down and ministered unto him. We are in the final battle. We must do everything possible to pass the word, including prayer. God has a plan for a nation to follow to free it from alien captivity. If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble my and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and forgive their sin, and I will heal their land. At the time of my interview with Mr. Rosenthal, I knew it was powerfully potent, and I had an overwhelming confidence in its content to arouse and awaken many who formerly disbelieved. It is interesting to see how the Rosenthal document confirms the themes of the protocols of the learned elders of Zion. It might be called Personalized Protocols 1979 edition. Well, there you go. Again, I think I mentioned it in yesterday's episode, but James did a 4-part series on the protocols of Zion. He dived deep into it and did some good research. And I made it all of it available in a playlist, so you could just go to the Rumble channel, click playlist, and it's right there in a playlist. I highly suggest you guys watch it. He really lays out both sides. He gives a lot of good information. I'm in the camp that it's real, it's authentic. I laid that out last night also. You know, there's historical, hard printed, before the internet age documentation that the protocols are real, that they've existed for over 100 years. Again, you just got to look at the world and it appears prophetic. Anyone who does not know that the organized Jew is an instigator of world communism or international Zionism and is in a conspiracy to destroy Christian civilization is too naive and too ignorant to deal with the problems we face. The Christ-hating Jew who conspires against our Christian heritage enjoys nothing better than the conservative who protects the Jew and will talk about everything dangerous to our country except the hidden hand of the Jew conspirators, the root of all evil which threatens Christian civilization. While it is, quote, the love of money, which is the root of all evil, it says 1 Timothy 6:10. The Jew exhibits far above any other peoples a love of money and have an instinctive and compelling desire for attaining as much wealth as possible, regardless of the means or harm it may cause. This evil force is the, quote, Antichrist, as revealed in the second letter of John, who says he is the Antichrist that denies the Father and the Son. It's an interesting perspective there. These Jew-protecting conservative Americans are knowingly or unknowingly helping to destroy their own country. As a result, Jews rule America. They plot to rule the world. We are in bondage. Can we escape? Yes, only if the Jew-protecting conservatives who are helping the Antichrist Zionists to divide and conquer will learn and accept the truths and be guided by the warnings of our Savior. He's referring to Jesus. And never think they know better than he. And if they will unite with real Americans who know the truth in a battle to save our country, we can escape from the clutches of Christ's worst enemies, the Antichrist Jews. For this is one of several ways in which our country can be saved. This means that whoever forgets or admits the Jewish question, be it through ignorance or fear, is unfit to be a preacher, teacher, or official. This means that every security risk, one worlders Atlantic Union plotter, an alien Antichrist Zionist whose loyalty is to another country and of all their traitor agents and stooges must be banished by real Americans united from every position of power and influence in this nation, and instead put none but real Americans on guard. For this is the way by which our country started, and thus the way it can be saved. And that is the end of the first part. That's page 23 out of 42. So, yeah, guys, this is some heavy stuff. Final thoughts, guys. I think there's a lot of truth to it. I'm not gonna lie, but I also don't hate anybody, and I can't quite say that you're guilty just because you fall under a group, even though I don't believe in the group mentality quite that much. A wise person once said, if you fall under any of the isms, so the groups, if you register yourself under a group, you're getting further away from the truth. That being that the person with the best, most right idea is the one who can't fit under any of the groups. So I don't like to use labels with myself. My loyalty is to the truth. That's where my loyalty is. All right, guys. I think I'm going to wrap it up there. I think this article that we've read quite a bit of, I think it's pretty damning. I think what we're going to do tomorrow is we're going to cover the article by Fritz Springmeier, Destruction by Dialectic. That's the namesake I was going for with this mini-series. It really talks about the idea that the polarization of an issue can kill that issue. So I want to leave it off there, I think. And then Sunday, we'll find something interesting to do for Sunday. Maybe if you guys have any feedback, I'm losing my voice now, like I said. If you guys have any feedback, please leave it in the comments. I'm keen to take your feedback. If there's anything you guys could suggest, anything you guys think that I should look into, leave it in the comments. I will happily implement it into what I say, what I do. I believe that you guys are a good crowd. I think you guys probably have a lot of good information that I have never even heard of. So anything you have, send it my way. I'll look into it. But guys, I appreciate you tuning in. This has been Cause Before Symptom. James will be back, I believe, Monday. I'm not sure. I think it's Monday. It's not Sunday night, but Monday. And I will be back with you tomorrow. So thank you guys. Have a good night. Entitlement. Why are they stuck on entitlement? I don't know. I think it is whoever is playing they behind the screen. Who are they quoting? Who are they that they're talking about? They is probably some lobbyist group, some paid quote. Yeah. Guys, we'll have to get into it sometime. The DARPA bot theory is insane. There's a X account called Dead Theory __, and it posts all these bots on Twitter that are DARPA bots. They're fake. They're not real. They're AI accounts. Some of them even respond in like weird formatting or something. They've unleashed bots onto the internet to control what people hear and see. So if I want you to believe something. I just make all the bots around you start saying it and parroting it, and then sooner or later you're going to believe it. So, guys, I appreciate you tuning in. Have a good night, guys.